Hi, well, today we're chatting about the launch of our project delivery platform. And today I'm really excited to be talking with Brian Mattson, one of our strategic advisors at XYZ. I'll let Brian introduce himself and talk a little bit about his experience, but to shine a bit of light, Brian has been involved in the data center industry more than probably anyone out there and has held strategic positions with several major hyperscale developers overseeing global portfolios. Brian, thank you so much for joining us today. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Nice. Awesome. Well, we'll jump straight into it, but I think if you could give a bit of an introduction to yourself, a little bit about your career path, background, also your experience within the data center space, that'd be great.
Sure. Well, I've been around a while, and I started out as a consulting engineer out of school as a mechanical consultant, and went to join Micron Technology when we were a startup semiconductor company. From Micron, I went to Intel and managed the Americas as well as the Asia region. I went to Asia for about 5 years. Returning from that, then I moved from semiconductors into data centers. I was recruited by Microsoft back in the day before there was anything called Azure or Bing. But just at the very beginning of the data center era of Microsoft, and I managed the construction and supply chain efforts globally for Microsoft. Went to NTT for a couple of years, and again managed their Americas portfolio, and then Google. And at Google, I led the global supply chain team and also program controls, so all the cost and time associated with the Google platform. Retired from there in 2020, and since then I've been working on my muscle cars. I restore old muscle cars and do work with companies like your own. I'm on a few boards and do some advisory work.
Nice. I'll let the audience decide what's more exciting, XYZ or the muscle cars. But I'd love to know, obviously you're one of our strategic advisors, but how did you first get involved with XYZ Reality? Can you take us through that story?
Well, I can't remember exactly how I was introduced to it. I think I found it through research and some word of mouth, but I do recall that I reached out to David and David Mitchell, and I met David at a PTC concert, a PTC event, and he had an Atom with him, and was able to take me through a demo. And of course, seeing it firsthand is amazing, because when you read about it and you intellectually understand what it does, that's one thing, but to actually experience it is another. And so that was several years ago. And since that time, the platform has just continued to grow in its capabilities, but I think that was the first time is that introduction with David.
That's awesome. And I remember sort of having been in the business for 4 years myself, sort of seeing that growth from just having an amazing piece of hardware all the way up until today, where we're launching the platform as well to all of our customers and the industry as well. is pretty exciting to see where we started and where we've got to today.
No question.
Yeah. So I'd like to get into a little bit about like the challenges surrounding the construction industry, obviously specifically within the data center space. So based on your experience, Brian, what would you say the biggest challenges are facing data center businesses when delivering their assets in the field today?
Well, I don't know how much time we have. There's limitless challenges.
It's a bit of a loaded question.
It is, but certainly resources, the quality and quantity of resources today is a big challenge, and it's a growing challenge. Supply chains are a huge challenge, and of course changing requirements as technology changes in the industry, those requirements change, and so from project to project or generation to generation, there's so much change in those requirements. But ultimately, all of those things come back to predictable delivery. And I think the biggest challenge that I see and that I'm aware of across hyperscalers, developers, contractors, is the ability to not only manage these challenges, but then integrally manage them and deliver on their commitments. And that's on time and cost, of course, with quality and safety being a constant, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love that you mentioned that sort of bit about predictability, almost being able to have that sort of forecasting, that visibility onto projects to understand, okay, we have a risk here, but how do we mitigate it to reach that end goal on every single one of our projects? And I know you obviously have probably seen this from all different scales, but how does that expand when you're looking at, say, a single project compared to a global portfolio of projects like what you were looking at after at the end of your career at Google?
Well, it's each geo has its own unique set of challenges. For instance, supply chains in the United States and Americas are very challenging, where in APAC, for instance, they're not as challenging. But in APAC, you have greater challenges with resource quality and workmanship, and so and rework and things like that. So the challenges are somewhat variable per region, but the ability to aggregate that information and see it on a platform in one place so that you have visibility to what's happening across your portfolio has always been a challenge for me. And the other part that goes with that is the objectivity, because throughout most of my career, most of the reporting I got was somewhat subjective, and not that it was gamed or anything like that, but whether it was done through percent complete or some sort of remeasures or field surveys, or it was all estimates, and sometimes grossly wrong. And we wouldn't find that until later in the projects, where we wouldn't have as many opportunities to mitigate them. And so the objectivity that the XYZ platform provides, and on a global scale, is huge for someone in roles like I had and others have that are managing global portfolios.
Yeah, absolutely. I like the bit that you touched on there about the, I guess, almost the standardization of data. If you're getting 10 different reports in 10 different formats, it then becomes very different to see between each one of these and actually understand where any of these projects are tracking. At least that's what I imagine from your perspective. And I think it probably ties quite nicely into my next question, which is, if you're looking back at your days at Google, Microsoft, NTT, how valuable would it have been to have real-time objective visibility into any one of your projects' progress and quality through one platform?
Well, of course, that's that question kind of answers itself, right? It's obviously a panacea to have that. And I don't know that I ever had it. I think we, in many companies, we tried to do that, but it's very difficult to do. Yeah, and of course, you've been working on it since what, 2016, 17? So
2017.
Yeah, so it's having that capability is huge. And not only that, you have it, but you have it real time. You have the ability to drill down where you see issues. You can go to the next level and look at what's going on there and be more informed. And as an executive, the ability then to lean in and say, well, how can I help here, right? And what do you need? And to then predictably know, what your earned value is, how that reflects on cash flow, which is huge to large customers. And the analysts and investors use cash flow as a way of determining how well the program is proceeding to its own predictable results. So, like I say, the question kind of answers itself because it's something that every construction professional would like to see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can imagine that sort of predictability, but the accuracy and the reliability of data to then be able to fuel those reports that you're giving out to various different stakeholders, whether they're investors, board members, project teams, can only be valuable. And I think something, again, that we're particularly proud of is being able to condense that all into one platform as well, which obviously is what we're talking about today. I think my last real question is kind of a question around the impacts of what you think the platform could do for the wider construction or the mission critical industry. So I guess to sort of load it off is like, what kind of impacts do you think a solution like ours at XYZ could have on the wider mission critical space, whether that's data centers, hospitals, airports, nuclear facilities? I'd love to get your take on that.
Well, as we've already discussed, the ability to see in one place the status of your portfolio, and then the ability to drill down either into projects or into parts of projects and understand what's going on real time is huge for an owner, for a developer, a contractor, and there's kind of benefits across the board. When you think of the contractor, for the contractor, time is money. And contractors look at their people and the deployment of their people and the return on the investment of those people. And the more efficient they can be at deploying them and then moving them to the next project and the next project, the more money they'll make. And so time is money to them. And then rework is so costly. It's costly in money, it's costly in time, can actually affect quality, often safety, because now you're doing rework in conditions that are not ideal. And so avoiding the rework for contractors is also a big deal. I think for developers and owners, we've talked about the predictable delivery, but the reason that predictable delivery is so important is that they need to achieve their clients' goals, and their clients' goals are tied to revenue, and the revenue behind these projects is huge, and so being late can cost the developers some penalties, but also reputational risk. And again, on-time delivery and being known for your ability to deliver on time is a huge competitive differentiator, because there are many, many, many projects that have been delivered late, but the reputation for on-time delivery is relatively thin out there. So I think the opportunity is huge across the board.
That's fantastic. And I love that point about obviously the reputation, but then looking at the contractor as well is the point that they really sort of come into this is they care about their day-to-day operational efficiencies, really, is how quickly can they react to these issues and mitigate them at the lowest cost point, really. So sort of having one place where they can see all that information and catch them as quickly as possible, but then also action them effectively. Can only be massive for those teams. And then obviously, I know you've spoken about the developers and the owner's side, the reputation, almost having that insurance policy to be able to deliver faster, but also just see these slippages, see these risks at the earliest stage, whether you're looking after one 20 megawatt facility all the way through to, as you said, a global portfolio. I can imagine.
There's one other thing I thought of, I'd add, is that representing an owner, you almost get to the point where you plan for delay, meaning you end up in your own program schedule, which infrastructure is just a piece of it, because then you have your servers, your operations, you got your development ahead of that, site selection, etc. But if you're not confident, what you end up doing is you add float to each one of those activities, and it makes the overall activity terribly long. And so by having confidence in the ability of your team to deliver predictably, now you can pull that out and you can condense your time to market for new products, new releases, or even just additional supply that you need in your, which is again of huge value to the clients, the ultimate consumers of the power.
I know that's one of the points which a lot of the team are going to be talking about, especially in this webinar, which is accelerating that time to market and reducing the time of construction, which obviously in data centers results in huge revenue gains for owners and developers and clients. So yeah, very important. But Brian, that's all the questions I've got for today. I don't know if there's anything else you want to add about XYZ, the platform, or you want to share with the audience today.
Well, I'm here for a reason, and having a varied experience in the construction industry and in project controls, I'm seeing something here that is very exciting, and that's why I joined the team to help advise on areas that I see of high value across the delivery chain. And I think there's obviously you've come a long ways. There's other things in the hopper that will continue to make this more and more valuable. And again, I don't know of another single platform that does what XYZ does today. And so I'm just excited to be a part of it.